I know that everybody talks about energy in healing. Books talk about it, all kinds of things. I believe that the reason that people conceptualize it that way results from two reasons. One is when people do therapeutic intention, we did studies that looked, they dilate their capillary system and their hands get warm. And so they have this image of they're sending healing.
Particularly if they're working with their hands,
yes.
I suppose.
So that they're sending healing. And also, just I think conceptually it's easier to understand. But I do not think that's what's going on.
Many healing disciplines involve visualizing
yes.
white light or golden-colored light. And
right.
The energy metaphor seems consistent with that.
Yes. And so most people frame it in that context. But when you actually climb into the issue and do the research, and I'm a data person, if it was energy and that's what the data said, well, I'd be sitting here talking about energy, but that's not what the data says. When you actually get into the studies, and there are a lot of them, you begin to see that it can't possibly be energy. First of all, the second law of thermodynamics doesn't allow you to send energy into the past. And yet we have, for instance, and this was really one of the definitive experiments, an Israeli researcher named Leonard Leibovici, who didn't like therapeutic intention and wished people would stop talking about it, which he said explicitly, designed an experiment, a very elegant experiment, in which he said, I'm going to design an experiment in which, if it works, the only way it can work is that there has to be some reality to therapeutic intention. And he designed this really quite lovely experiment. He was at the Beth Israel Medical Center in Israel. He's an epidemiologist. And he went to his computer and he asked the hospital's computer, the database. He discussed with a group of people, specialists in these areas, what could they focus their healing on. And they settled on an iatrogenic blood disease or illness that you get in the hospital. And they looked at it from 1994, this is in 2000, 1994 to 1996, so 4 to 10 years in the past, these people were in the hospital.
And diagnosed, they contracted the iatrogenic illness
in the hospital.
In the hospital.
Right.
Years prior to the
4
research.
to 10 years in the past.
Yes.
So they don't know anything about any of this.
Yeah.
And it turned out there were 3,393 people who had that diagnosis. He then had the computer randomly assign them to one of two populations, treateds, controls. He asked he brought in healers, and he gave them nothing about these people except their first name and the initial of their surname.
And these were, I presume, experienced healers.
Yeah, these were all people who defined themselves as healers. And he asked them to simply focus that these people would get better and would enjoy good health. Nothing specific. He didn't say what was wrong with them. And he, importantly, did not tell them that this all lay in the past. So I think they probably thought, although it doesn't say in the paper, which it is worth noting was published in the British Medical Journal, I think they probably thought that the Healy this was all present tense.
Yes.
So they did that for 2 weeks. He didn't know what was going to happen either.
But he surmised that if the healing intention, if the therapeutic intention worked, that it would have to work backwards in time.
It would be retrocognitive. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that therefore it could not be any of the models that people were talking about.
Yes.
And that it couldn't just be suggestion or the healer was a friendly face and that was enough to somehow stimulate psychophysical self-regulation. Or he wanted to eliminate all, that's why it's such an elegant experiment. He wanted to eliminate all those variables.
There was no contact. The healers and the healing were never in proximity.
No. In fact, the healees didn't even know that they were the target of healing.
Yeah.
So for 2 weeks, they had, it would be like Jeff M. Mm-hmm. That's all they had.
Yep.
So they're sitting there in healing, saying these names. Actually, there were so many of them that they did it as a block. Mm-hmm. There's 1,700 in one group and 1,300 in the other. And so they held the list and thought, may these people get better and have good health.
Mm-hmm.
So then Leibovici, who was also blind to what actually happens, pulled the records of all these people. Now, again, I stress, they were out of the hospital 4 to 10 years. They didn't know anything about any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And what he discovered, to his astonishment, he had the integrity to say, was that those people who were the recipients of therapeutic intention, even though it was 4 to 10 years in the past, had radically different courses of illness. He measured, as typical hospital assessment, a typical medical assessment, intubation, fever length, use of medications, complications that arose, the standard sort of things that you would do for any kind of an analysis of a treatment. And he discovered that those people who had been the recipients of therapeutic intention, even though it was coming essentially from the future, had very different courses of illness, suggesting, well, first of all, it's not energy because you can't send energy back in time.
I'm not sure that you can send information back in time either.
Well, no, I don't agree with that. I think when you're in the non-local domain, space and time are informational enrichers, but not limitations, because we know that people can remote view things that are distant as well as things that are close. We know that people can locate archaeological sites that were lost thousands of years ago. We know that people can precognitively describe targets. In fact, the standard way that I and most other researchers today do remote viewing experiments is that you get the information before the target's even selected. So at the time that they're doing the remote viewing, there is no target.
In other words, precognitive.
Precognitive, yes. You are going back in time when the past was the present. You can't change the past.
Yeah.
This is important. You can't change the past. What you can do is influence how it occurs in the first instance. Don't feel bad. It took me 3 days to really think my way through this.
I know. We're getting into a heavy mind boggle area.
Yes, this is a heavy mind boggle. So you can't change the past, but you can go back into the past when it is the present and influence the way it occurs.
Yeah.
All right.